Okay, identification lines, 3 strips lines, high calculations of 4 lines of 3 side position travel calculations. Okay, directing lines of communications. All right, all communication 114 panels, communication lines of realms and settlement counter line high centers are open through sequence. Bounded communication lines of grounds, powers high position location of center. Direct calculation high position, all operations surface triangulation. Resetting position programs, line setting, and position to its location system, travel. Calculate high center line interference, like 2,000 lines in 1, 2, and 3 track line conditions. Triangulation to reset position of programs. Okay, direct calculation line interference in 1 center position of operation. Sets calculation lines is 0. Gravity line position of routers and routers. Sets lines calculation high interference satellites and communication of programs, directing signal positions. Sonar coming in, outline communications setting, alpha, delta, theta, and line rotation circuits, triangulation. Set positions, operations, circuit locations. Now, 114 is lines of space, okay, done by equation. All right, so the center calculation line is the portals are now open. Now the stargates, star link, star panel, star division, star map, star sequence is now in program setting. Directing lines, communication lines of box line rotation centers, 4 lines of 3, 3 lines of 6, 6 lines of 7, and 8 lines of communication and center calculation. Directing lines of position location of center lines in positions program. Sets lines of triangulation, high position location settings, position of box centers. Theta communication lines of 3 set location lines of travel. Directs calculation lines of 4 lines of high position locations, high center interference of travel. Sets position locations in 6, 7, and 8 lines of travel. Direct calculation lines of 9, 10, and 11, and 12 lines of travel calculations. Okay, now directing lines of center in center position of its operations circuit location system. Platitude line calculations 1, 2, 3 in position of programs. Calculation line centers of the sun and the moon comes in projection all calculations setting astral travels, astral projections and set location of setting and travel communication. Directing lines of communication of panels done by equation. All right, so the 114 line screen is now set up. So we got plasma line walls. Okay, so this is what it looks like in position of programs. Position location line centers and T reception screen settings. 1's over track, 3 panels, 4 lines, 6 positions, 7 calculations, 8 lines, and 1 line center and position of its calculation. Directing calculation line centers is 0 gravity, sets position at 0 travels, calculation on line centers in travel communication and programs. Now, this directs signal location system. Platitude division lines, walking surface, platforms, okay, platforms in communication. Okay, it's complicated stuff now in track locations, all right? Now, directing lines of communication line centers has a triangulation line positions program. Directs lines to 2 communications over pi. Direct line calculations setting the face positions all levels. Travel calculations at all lines of face recognition. See? Face recognition. All right. So that's sensor lines of communication line. Screen lines, high calculation setting. All right, so we got the platforms of communication. Okay, so think of all communication lines, the platform communication, right? So block centers and position location, travel centers, okay? Direct lines, okay, species of communications on top line signals, modification system. All right, so law of platitude, set calculation line streams, setting calculation line position locations. We got a rewind and position locations and position location pause in the center. All right, so species lines and set location lines. I got circuitry board position box lines. Positions of 2 panels, lines of 3 and 4, position of graph calculation lines of stream. All right, direct calculation line interference sets position location to a colossal communication channel. This directs signal location system above line setting of space. Setting direct line calculation setting, pressing pause, 1, 2, 3. Sets lines of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initiate. Execute line position location line centers, 114 stargates, press pause. Done by equation. It's all set up. All right. Rewind your channels. Communication 1 lines of factor, 3,000 lines of measure, position of scales, sets lines of 6,000 line screens, sets position location 9,000 line settings, puts position of 12,000 lines measures, position of 24 line cycles, calculate high interference, setting bracket communication settings going forward and track location system. Position of 3 track line connections and position locations, you guessed it, position of 4 track locations. All done by equation. It's all set up now. So the circuitry board lines, species line are now in pause. All right, 3 months line screen. Setting direct line signals and high positions calculation. One graph calculation setting. Okay, so we come into theta box into two waving panels and communication is center. Direct communication lines is center calculations, point line tracks, magnetic high A information line center and high positions calculation setting. Center lines is communications. Travel too fast, set position, right? Platform communication line centers the two graph calculation streams. Platforms of communications 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, set location of measure. Set calculation line inference, high position travel lines of 3 set locations. Now, direct lines of security panel, security wall sets a default channel in communications. Setting calculation lines as center lines, flywheel communication lines centers high positions calculation. Direct calculation lines of a container in position all calculation lines streams and set position of its calculation operation surface and triangulation. That my equation. All right. So the walking service line position is already set at locations. So we go back to the communication line settings, the satellite. Direct lines communication x 2000 position travels, sets lines of 4-track line calculation setting and position of its operation. Okay, that my equation. Okay, fortitude streams, direct lines of panels. Now we get position all calculation high variance. Setting lines of 0 gravity and position location at 3-track line conditions. Okay, getting used to all communication lines to a bypass position travel, 3-line communications, right? So we set this line, set lines of communication of Fibonacci line swirls and 3-track line calculation high position program. Direct calculation line centers. Remember the router phones, line position locations? Well, the analog rotation centers, the flywheel communication system, position of travel calculation line inference comes into the flower of life and track line conditions to its program setting. Setting line position of its programs, setting line communication of its setting, and travel communication line system of phase recognition of time, position, location of center calculation. Done by equation. All right. All right, so that's in circuit. The center calculation line is the circuitry line screen. Okay, so now we have the 2 batteries communication stream settings. 1 position over positive, 1 position over negative. Setting travel calculation lines at 2-point track line conditions. Setting position location line systems on a level setting. Okay, putting position line calculation setting in center communications and center calculation. Right. Set position of platforms, platforms, and platforms at 4-track location. Setting calculation line centers in position of 1, position of 2, 3, and 4-track location system. Directing lines of communication line centers, calculation high interference, high position of 2 patterns. Sets position lines of 8, 8, 8, 8. Sets position location 8 lines ascending, 8 position of program, 8-line communication, 8-line division. Sets position of attractions. Direct calculation line interference. We go into theta communication lines, crossing lines at all calculation high position, lacing lines and communication lines at TV reception communication setting and position travel. Okay, done by equation. All right, so the metric meters and scale settings, high positions, program lines is all through unification. Directing lines and communication lines, okay? So we got capsule center, position of track, and 3 center lines and communications of programs. So the set position location to its webbing system has a travel calculation lines to a dimensional door and a 3-line communication setting. Okay, see the box line rotation surface? Position location program, okay, overlaps a signal. Sets lines of 3 centers in high travel in position locations, right? See the doors, center calculation, right? So that is all set up. Now allocated, elongated line now, high line reference, high position location. So we take the Fibonacci line swirls, set position of 1 center. So 3, 6, and 9 is set lines. Is now out of the equation settings of travel. Gone. Center calculation line is center line rotations, sets positions calculation, center positions calculation. In that direct line centers. So we go in the opposite line cycle, sets position location around lines, setting direct locations into forward line. In position of back force communication setting to the fly, wheel, and track line connections. Creates realms and realms and portal communication lines, 114 lines of communication streams, indirect signal in position of its program in calculation line setting. 4-track line communications of programs in set location. Done by equation. Okay. So we got a cluster cloud, 3 lines of communication settings of travel. Okay. Now line communication line interference, plasma line setting and change communications and platforms and 2-track line connections of programs. Okay. Center lines is communications, opens up dimensional door, sets lines of communication. Right? Direct lines of signals, 3 lines of communication, 2 lines of track, and 1 line provision and center calculations. All right, point system and track locations. That my equation. Clocking connections and high center, high line rotation surface, and high positions calculations. Ported communication lines of Fibonacci line swirls and center line communications. 6 and 9 is a track, right? So line position of 6 and 9 position locations of calculations. 6 and 9, all right? Pattern communication lines and ground lines, service location system, all levels, line setting, in track line connections, positions, program, and center calculation. Okay. Now, the sequence communication line centers, you got a pause calculation stream. It's already set up. Sets lines calculation line interference, electrical box infusion line rotation centers, ground communication line centers, earth equals lines of air, air equals lines of water, and water equals lines of fire, or track line calculation, setting, position, calculation. Right? Done by equation. All right, so that's set up. So setting these things up, guys, is all calculated and measured. Scales communication of 4 graph communication screen settings, right? 4 graph set locations, right? So we got a 0 grabbing line position of 4 track line connections, right? Setting lines of 0, 0 position 0, set position of 0, 0 here, 0 here. Sets line connections 0 here, 0 here, 0 here. 1 line center, 1 line rotation, 1 line interference, and track locations. Now, the matrix meters and position of travel calculated line is the calculation setting. Travel calculation lines are 3 lines, molecule structures at 3 set locations. Directing lines of communication lines are intercom, communication programs, Fibonacci line swirls, directing lines of portals, is set travel communicates setting and program and set location. All right, directing communication line setting sets lines of 0 gravity and 3 track line connections, 2 lines high interference, 1 line's high position travel calculations, 1 line measure, 1 line's a cycle line, calculation center positions calculation. Okay, that my equation. Okay, so in that metric meters, we change the scale settings. Now scale set position location of 2B box lines. Okay, so we go through all line rotation, circles, triangulation. What's below is what's above and set lines. What's inside lines of communication, setting the circles. Setting lines of Fibonacci, set lines of communication Fibonacci, and position location setting line calculation setting. So the equal line communication now is a Fibonacci. Okay. Remember, the equal line communication is no longer separated, but now it's in 3 panel communication line. Position locations of bypass, position, travel, calculation, high position location, north or south, and east position location of patterns. Now, direct line calculation setting to a diamond core position of travel calculation of high positions programs. Now, that's indirect signal. Travel communication lines are programmed set positioners calculations, stargate, star, and star location system, and 114 travel. Now, that's all set up. Okay, center position location or flywheel is in direct signal positions of power or calculation setting of travels. Points, lines, the astral projections, film strips, travels, line communications, and 3 lines of 4 lines, graphing communication, crossing lines of 45-degree angles, and splits lines of anomalies and track location. Okay, very complicated stuff. Coming to line calculation setting, you guessed it, face recognition of time sequence. Done by equation. Look how powerful that is, how it's set up in initiation set locations. Go beyond. You have to go beyond, understand everything through set lines of communications, guys. All right. So we're all working with the Fibonacci line screens and set location of 0 operation of 1 line center. All track to communication surface and triangulation. Right. So you have to really understand how that sets lines to all communications, right? Getting rid of all density stream interference. Now, we got 2 graph calculation streams, 1 box line center, triangulation high position location of Fibonacci line swirl, and center calculation equal line communication. It's all set up now. Remember, there's a space in between. There's no more space in between. It's a Fibonacci now. So we got a bypass of north, east, and position of all levels in west and south, and a diamond core shift line lock line screen position to a flywheel and track line calculation line system in a propeller and position of travel calculation line system and face recognition of time sequence. Done by equation. All right. How's everybody doing so far? Try to get understanding what's going on throughout calculation of your settings. It's all set up position, location, and parameters. All right, so it's amazing how we set communication lines. So you're no longer separated. Never been separated in the first place. But the equal line communication is no longer in space. It's got its Fibonacci of its bypass communication. Now, direct line calculation, you're working with 3 line signals. Sets lines calculations of 4 and position location of 5 and set location. right? Directing lines calculation high interference in, again, you're positioning a flywheel. Now, position track lines, the flywheel comes an 8-line rotation surface coming in position of planetary surface. Triangulation high position, so this comes into propeller in track location. You guessed it, the flower of life, done by equation. Setting position of stem, there's the stem, right? It's setting as a track line. Setting lines of dynamic core line, shift line, screen line, pi position locations. Intelligence, right? All right, so that's positional calculations. So Mother Earth is no longer in her umbrella a position of power. Her direct line signal is now into the galactic surface in line position location of 4 settings in travel. Sets lines at calculation line centers, high position of 4 settings at travel. So she's equal lines of 8, 8, and 8 position of triangulation reset position of programs. Setting the line position location at 8 centers, 8 position of programs, 8 line calculation setting, in triangulation reposition locations equalize in between. Direct lines calculate high position of box line theta in position of program setting position of track lines. Intelligence, all formation, in all calculations, to all ground settings, to its earth, to its air, to its water, to its fire, and track line communication setting, bypassing all levels in set position to calculation. Okay? So metric meters of the calculation mine lines, the streamlines in 4-track location, high setting. Power over pi, face, position, and programs, and 3-center communications. Directing lines of communication of panels, right? All right. So circuitry elements is positioned to your chart settings as screens. Setting lines of 24, sets lines of 48, 72 track lines into 144, and position locations of programs in line connecting. All right. So directing lines of position locations, crossing line centers, high positions program. So 2 lines of track, 4 lines of measure, and set positions calculations, right? 4 lines of 8, 8 lines of 2 in track locations. 7 lines of 2 and 2 lines of 8 in track line connection, 1 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6, lines of 7, and cross lines of 2, back and forth set location. Inline rotation, next 2000, scans position of 3 travels, set positions calculation, triangulation and reset position programs and calculation. Modifies high calculation lines as center, okay? So we platted to line position of 4 lines, location grid, and center communication setting. Now, this optus signals in all primal communication lines that travels of 4 sets. Calculation line and high position after travels in the film strips in position locations, crossing lines in a 45-degree angle in position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of communication of channel calculations. Done by equation. Okay. So the center calculation lines of the Earth is now in a higher calculation lines. Ether cord communication center line calculation. Direct lines position of panels, center communication lines. Op signals in 3-track locations, right? Direct lines of communication lines of 3 lines in position. Position location line centers and 4 cross locations of setting, okay? 7 in digit, 7 in program, 7 in CPU, and set position location equals lines of pause. Sets travel communication setting and travel. 3 months line setting, 3 million track lines, 3 light years away, setting line communication line interference into 3 gravity line rotation surface and particle accelerators, and 3 line communication setting and travel calculation. 3 lines in track location of 4 settings in travel communication. Very complicated stuff. Done by equation. All right, so the center calculation lines is 0, sets position of programs. We split the anomalous position travel calculation highest center interference of sonar. See the sonar communication? X lines signals. Now we wait through the indicator that goes around the clock line calculation setting at 24-line signal. Done by equation. All right. Center calculations of barometers, thermometer line check lines, stream interference, mountains communications, high centers of travel calculations. Setting line communication line centers, 60,000 position programs, 2 line centers down in position of computer framing. Calculation line interference, line crosses line stream in position of cake operation. Direct lines of panels, sets lines of communications, center lines its balance, and 3-line communications center calculation. Now, direct lines of path is all I understand the triangulation and reset position of programs, how it sets lines of communication and setting. So directing lines of communication line centers is center position location of 3 lines, track lines calculation, high position location of 4 lines of track location setting, operation server location system, center calculation line interference and set position. center calculation, line center, and position location of face calculation. All right, that my equation. All right. So it's amazing how we set these things up, guys. You really understand your formula is the equation, how all center lines is calculation stream interference. All right. So we're going to work with 20 line tracks into line center locations into 39. 30 line rotation centers, 9 lines is 2 lines of 2, lines of 0, 10 line rotations of 3, 9 lines centers of 9. So that's 9 line centers. So that's lines of 2, operation line position locations, 2 lines of 9 in position of travels, and point line connection. Done by equation. That's it, we're done. So any questions or comments, let me know. We don't have Q&A. I have to head out, but position of travel lines. You guys are all now in central line communication setting and position locations. Classic time, Santa time, position of travel calculation, 114 stargates or open two panels, and communication through structure of the design. The process calculates line interference is a 3-month line screen. That's the right locations of pause line centers and body framing communication setting the programs and set locations. Adios.